Test, 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 test. Hello. Turn up, gain, turn up, test. Test, 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 test. Hello, hello. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test.
Hey. All right, welcome you all to episode number 3 for this year of VR Beyond Gaming. We appreciate you coming out. I'm Sean McMains.
And I'm Trisha Katz.
Yeah. And we're excited you're here. Tonight we have a treat. Tim Porter will be talking to us about some of the work that he and Alex, his wife, have been doing in the therapy space, using virtual reality as a therapy tool. Looking forward to getting to see this. He also has the demo available on our Rift setup, our Vive setup over here. So if you want to have a look at it afterwards, you are welcome to do so. Before we get rolling on that, does anybody have any announcements, any information they'd like to share with the community? I know, Brian, you've got a little something to say, don't you?
Sure.
All right, come on up.
The more I drink, the more I'll talk. Thanks for the beer. My name's Brian Vinci. I'm here on behalf of the Expedition Hack Series. We're a hackathon series that is sponsored primarily by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. This will be the 8th hackathon that we put on. It'll be in Austin here on July 29th and 30th. And the biggest portion of this particular hackathon series is so that the agency can expose problem sets that they have to a wider audience, also expose data and platforms that they haven't made available to the public, but nobody knows about them because they don't have a marketing arm. So they put on the hackathons to let developers specifically know they've got all this data, they've got all these platforms, they want you to take it, go build cool stuff with it, and sell it back to them for tens of millions of dollars. So they put on hackathons, they put up some challenges so that you guys can meet them. If you're looking for a job, they're wanting to hire about 800 people, specifically software developers. So if you're in the market for something like that, they will be on hand with hiring authority. And if anybody knows anything about dealing with the government, it takes a long time. That's why they're bringing the people to you. So if you've got skills that are looking for a new career, it's a great place to come. We're going to give away like $5,000, maybe a little bit more. We'll see what shakes. And we hope you guys come out. It'll be focused on developing immersive experiences, which is why I came to this particular meetup tonight, because you guys are all virtual reality enthusiasts, augmented reality enthusiasts, and developers, and so you will fit great with this particular agency and what they're trying to get accomplished. So thank you for your time. I'll have some flyers up and I'll throw them on the table.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, we'll give that a clap. Come on. So we are also interested if folks are looking for work or have work to offer to hear about that. So I'll open it up by saying that we are actually looking for some senior Unity engineer talent at Mutual Mobile right now. So if that's something you would be interested in and feel like you've got the experience there, please let me know. We'd be happy to get you in touch with the right people there. Trish, you got anything else you want to share right now?
No, I do. My contact at Booz Allen is looking for somebody in the immersive media space, and I think particularly maybe web VR, and then also higher powered VR experiences. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I'd be happy to make the connection.
Cool. Anybody else looking for work or looking for talent?
For work, yeah.
So pop up, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm Fernando. I recently finished a bootcamp with the university. I have close to a decade developing software as an art. I started as an artist, then became a game designer, and then a project manager. And then it dawned on me, well, I'm missing code in that tool belt. So I went to school, got it, and loved it so much that I wanted to make the transition full time to front-end.
Awesome. Good for you. And good for your initiative. Man, that's great. Cool. And
Hi, y'all. I'm Daisha, and I just finished a coding boot camp, and I'm excited to be here. And even though my skills are still sort of budding, it's great being around all these seasoned developers, and hopefully I'll learn through osmosis.
fantastic. Glad you're here. Anybody else? All right. Then without further ado, please welcome Tim Porter.
So actually, since you guys were all standing up, I did want to go ahead and say we are also looking. Underminer Studios is one of our different companies. This is Adago. And we're looking for VR, AR, MR people, basically anybody who wants to do really cutting edge, bleeding edge things. If you like to fail a lot, that's pretty much what's going to happen. Because we do a lot of projects where, Intel will come to us and be like, hey, we got this new technology and we really want to see what developers are going to do with it. So just recently they gave us their new VR MSI-1 backpack. And they're sitting there going, hey, Tim, what can we do with this thing? And so, I came up with a really cool thing that involves some virtual reality, some augmented reality, a little bit of computer vision, and everything in between. But I need some people to help me actualize that experience. And we're looking, coming up in the next little bit, I got a couple other projects that are coming down the pipe, and that'll actualize all of those different people. So, cool. So, what are we talking about today? It's going to be a little bit about virtual reality therapy. It's going to be a little bit about virtual reality in general. Obviously, I've been in the space for, as far as virtual reality, and I feel like the old guy now. Been around for 2 years in VR, which gives me a year ahead of the development curve, even before it came into the consumer market. And we've done everything from markerless motion tracking, facial recognition, all the way to VR radios, entire backends. So we did, some FFmpeg decoders, and so I'll give you a little bit of background and a little bit of information as to, what to do correctly, as if I really know. That's one of the fun things that you'll end up finding out is that a lot of us, we love what we're doing and we're very passionate about what we're doing. There are no paradigms. We sit there and we talk to all the people that were in wave 4, 3, and 2, and 1 of this. If you didn't know, this is the 5th wave of VR. And we are all doing what we can to actualize all those different ideas. But we're going to cover that, and then we'll also cover, how virtual reality therapy can be utilized and used in our current environments and modality sets so that it can continue towards a consumer market so that more people can get help and healing as they go along. So virtual reality therapy, tech for a better brain. So once again, a little bit about me. I'm a CTO. I spent 10 years in the video game industry. I specifically was a technical artist. Every technical artist is a little bit different. I've been told it's kind of like a unicorn, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like that. But in the end, each one of us come with a different mindset and skill set. A lot of us come from code side. I came from the art side. And we are capable of doing art, code, design. My specific skill set end up working on device-specific optimization. I did a lot of interdepartment liaison work, so I'd work between code, art, and design and make sure everybody understood what was going on. You sit there and you talk with a coder. Coder's not going to be able to talk to an artist most of the time, and a producer's going to sit down and go, hey, I just want X, Y, and Z done. Why did this take another week? And what a technical artist sits there and goes, well, I understand what the coder's saying. I understand the lift that this person's doing. I understand what the art person is doing. And I understand what the designer wants and what their vision is. And so most of the time it would be a game of negotiation and sales tactics. So I would sit down and I would go to the designer and go, hey, if we go and I give you 90%, that's going to go ahead and reduce our lift over here on code side. If I write a little script that will automate the process of bringing the art side over, then we can go ahead and reduce the producer side. So I basically was a living dependency graph. Nevertheless, it was a lot of fun. I did a lot of automation and, of course, doing a lot of device-specific optimization made it very helpful going over to the VR environment. As you know, our market segmentation is giant. Like, what headset are you on? I don't know. It's the flavor of the week. It's whoever will pay me to switch over. So that's, yeah, get used to that one. So own 2 different studios. One of them I'm CTO at Underminer, which was the company I was talking to you guys about before. We do anything that's leading edge technology, actualizing hopes and dreams, I guess is the best way of saying it. A lot of times I come in and they consult me and they go, hey, I have this really cool idea, but it's D. How do I get from A to D appropriately? Not only that, my budget is, this big. Has anybody seen the image online where it's, this is what the client wants and it's the lion from Pi, and this is what the client gave us and it's a stuffed animal? I'm that guy. I'm that guy who came in and was trying to help out and trying to make that happen. I've turned that into a studio. And then what Itigo does is we do virtual engagements. Basically, the entire idea is we want to democratize mental health. There's a big issue that we have in the United States that mental health is not only not accessible, it's unaffordable. Most people would rather, have their teeth pulled than go see a psychologist. And then, of course, on the same side, who has the time? You spend an hour out, and then most of the time they're an hour late. And then by the end of it, you're 3 hours out of your day. It's a very interesting thing. So we're leveraging as much of the technology that we can to go ahead and actualize that. So what is virtual reality therapy? And this is our Wikipedia one, which basically says that virtual reality therapy is a use of psychological or occupational therapy in which patients receiving virtual reality therapy navigate through a digitally created environment to complete a specially designed set of tasks that are tailored to treat a specific ailment. And what does that, oh, that one got taken out. So what does that mean? What does that really look like? In our specific engagement, what that looks like is you end up taking an individual, someone who has, let's say, fear of heights, and that's what we're actually going to showcase today. Somebody who's afraid of heights, we're going to go ahead and put them into 4 separate levels. Level 1, it's very innocuous. It's not much like your fear of phobia. It's not much, realistic as far as the visual quality goes. And then once you start ramping it up, level 2 becomes more realistic. It becomes more like your fear and phobia. 3 and 4 becomes into that world where it's something that even if you are not necessarily, you necessarily don't believe that you're afraid of heights, there's a pretty good chance that you end up having an issue of some sort. There are a lot of people that sit there and go, I'm not afraid of heights. I have no issues, and I don't believe I'll ever have any issues. But being able to get into a world where your life is faced in front of you, something that you would never end up doing in real life, and being able to break through that boundary is something that's very helpful and healing for most people. As well, what we also have is psychoacoustic audio, which is sound that goes ahead and, based off of tones that are above and below the human registry of sound, allows you to have an emotional response. So if you're in a fear and phobia world, of course we're trying to amp up that feeling, give you anxiety, give you a sort of feeling so that whenever you actually have a mental response, which actually goes into your fight or flight reflex, you're actually trying to suppress that as you're going along. As well, we also have calming worlds. So if at any point in time you don't feel like you can face that, you're able to jump back over there and be able to deal with it on your own pace. And so that's really what it is in our visualization of it is a self-led care. So that people can get the help that they need, which is sorely needed in our environment and society. So virtual reality therapy by the numbers. According to the US government and some of their recent studies, it's 90% effectiveness. And so what they had done is they did a study where they took people who had PTSD, these would be servicemen, and started them out, and there are a number of different checks of this is PTSD, and below this many checks you don't have it, above this many checks you do have it. After a 2-week period, the number of people, 90%, were below that number of checks. On top of that, the estimated cost is $467 billion this year. Every time I look at that, I have to reread that, making sure I'm saying it correctly. $467 billion. That is just what we spend on mental health care. That doesn't count mental health days. That doesn't include family members who have to help take care of them. That doesn't include depression. A sad worker is not an effective worker. These are very dangerous things that we don't face in society. We don't talk about mental health. If I cut off my leg and my arm, someone gets it. I get a parking spot. I have something, some way to help me out. If I'm depressed, what is there for me? So we're trying to obviously help save that. And then 1 in 5 people have mental health issues, is what's stated. So why use VRT? Obviously, it's a technology that can make a massive difference. It can be spread out to a larger number of people using powerful visuals and feedback. If you're actually very good at doing visual feedback, which most of the people who are starting to get into the space are really able to push that, you're able to go ahead and immerse people further. So what it ends up feeding back into is that you have an entire world that is digital. It's a safe place, whether or not they're facing a fear and phobia, while at the same time you're able to push that basal response, that response of fear and phobia onto that person. So it's a nice safety feedback loop of, this is my fear and phobia, I am facing it, but I know it's not real, And I know at any point in time I can leave that fear and phobia, and I can face it whenever I'm ready. So it's another tool as well. I think one thing, and I've been asked this a number of times from different psychologists and psychotherapists, and continue on, and anything with an "ist" at the end of it has probably asked me this, is why are we trying to do this? What are we trying to do? And in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reach that group of people that wouldn't have gone to a therapist in the first place. And also, this is kind of a gateway. You know, if you get in there and you're like, wow, you know, I have some pretty innocuous things that I'm able to deal with. I'm able to go ahead and self-care, you know, fear of heights, arachnophobia, but I have some really big issues that I probably need to talk to somebody about. This opens up the doors for an individual to figure out that, yes, maybe they do have a psychological issue, that they need to see a trained professional and an individual with the skills and experience to be able to help them work through that. So for those people that are able to actually use more aggressive forms of psychotherapy, if you're talking about somebody who is a therapist. So we're talking about being able to push that through that way. So how does it work? And this, you know, I've touched on this just a little bit back and forth. What you have, and this is a really cool term, galvanistic vestibular stimulation. So what that is basically a human feedback loop. As I walk forward, my vestibular system, which is my sense of balance and my sense of presence and well-being, sense of being, so I apologize, says that I am here and I am in this experience. Because my balance sensor says I'm here, because my visual feedback loop says that I am moving forward, my body believes that I am moving forward. Therefore, I believe I am present in the system. And then the other one is vestibular destimulation, which basically goes down to your amygdala, which is that fight or flight response. So as you're going along, and we're starting to show you a more and more like your fear and phobia experience, it becomes more and more visually accurate and visually acceptable as a real environment. Your entire amygdala system sits there and goes, oh, well, I know how to deal with this. I've dealt with this before. Let me go ahead and start to calm down a little bit. I can deal with this. I'm cool. So as that starts becoming more desensitized, it's easier for you to go ahead and go through these environments. All right. So this is where it comes really fun, and this goes back to my fun experiences and the reason why using somebody who knows a lot about VR and has been doing a lot of VR work is very important. What increases immersion? So to be able to get a good VR therapy environment, you actually have to be able to increase immersion, make it to where people actually believe they're there. The more that you do that, the less you break the reality, the better that it is. So doing things like physical objects, having hand tactile, the Vive does it very well with their hand controllers. I wouldn't say it's the best. They're still working. I think we're all still working on pushing what tactile input means and what hand input and physical objects mean. Obviously, you know, we all hope for the day that we can physically pick up everything in the world and has force feedback. And, you know, when I pick up, you know, a hologram, it actually is, you know, a heavy hologram and physically accurate. But, you know, if anybody watched Red Dwarf, that's at least, what, 2,500 years from now? Thanks. So the next thing, of course, is modern UX. So you have to go ahead and build an experience that is built around VR. I don't know how many times I've had marketing agencies that come up to me and go, this is our plan, and you know, this is our storyboard. And I go, okay, what happens when I look left? Oh, we haven't thought about that. Well, you know, people can look in all 360. So you have to build these storyboards. And the really cool one that I saw, and this was from Shell Games. They had come out with Okay, Now You Die, which is yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. And what they did was, and follow me here, it's called brown boxing. It is take a whole bunch of cardboard boxes and you mock it up like you would the actual physical UI. And so as you're sitting there, you're able to go ahead and go, oh, okay, well, you know, here's the car, and here, because it's based around, a lot of it's the car. And so you have like, here's a steering wheel, and over to the right is the glove box. And so you're able to show people as they're going along a physical environment that's super quick to mock up. All it takes is some duct tape, some cardboard, and, you know, about 30 minutes and craft glue. Everybody likes craft glue glitter. And so, you know, as you're able to go ahead and go around that whole thing and get in there, people can ask these questions. You're like, well, what happens if they open the window? I don't know. they get sucked out. Maybe their gun gets out of their hand. And it allows people to have a physical space to actually go ahead and do things. And so you can mock up things way faster than you can in VR, because mocking up things in VR is not so quick. It's not so quick. And then, of course, visuals. I think everybody gets a good-looking experience, or an experience that doesn't attempt to ride in that uncanny valley. Everybody knows about the uncanny valley. You have everything looks realistic. It's super cool. It looks great. Oh no, we're suddenly at Final Fantasy. You know, and then it looks completely unrealistic, and nobody has any idea what's going on. And then once you end up getting over on this side, it starts becoming realistic. But there's so few things that have come back out of the trough yet. You have to be very intelligent about how you play it and how you do it. The one thing, you can have a visual that looks so beautiful and perfect, and people sit there and go, oh, that was mocapped. Oh, that doesn't look real because the skin lighting isn't just right. It's so difficult at this point in time. So to be able to push visuals is this lovely dance, especially because more than a third of your computer is entirely taken up by just running the VR experience, which is fun. So what breaks immersion? And this one's really fun, and you see this all day long. I can tell you 9 out of 10 games on the Steam store that have VR anywhere in the title are doing this. And it's unrealistic situations. You know, there are a lot of people that are doing, and they can be fun in games, you know, where you're jumping using your hands. And if you do it right, it's great. But there's that nasty balance between, yes, I'm doing it quite right, but because it's so mind-blowing and my body doesn't understand what's going on, I never end up getting fully immersed in that environment. And so it becomes this dangerous gameplay of how do I make people not sick, have fun, innovative user experience? How do I go ahead and have people into an experience that looks cool and innovative, and then make people actually believe that they're immersed in that environment and they actually live in that environment? So it's a fun little game. Uncomfortable equipment. Not a lot we can do about that right now, unless you're a hardware designer, and if you are, let's have fun, let's talk afterwards. I'd love to talk. Right now we're stuck with what we have. The Vive has gotten lighter over time. You could still beat someone to death with it. And those controllers, if you miss, like, you're taking out an eye. I'm dead serious, and this is my favorite story. I won't tell you who it came from or who it was that did it, but there was this C-level individual, CEO, CTO, something of that nature, had his friend come over, and they were trying VR for the first time, and he was going to go ahead and have him start up a company with him. Puts on the VR headset, and he's doing the plank experience. So just who's played the plank experience? A couple people. The tenets of it is that you're outside, you're walking on a plank in between two buildings, you're kind of going along. He gets to the end of it, and the C-level gentleman tells his investment friend, hey, jump off. Swan dive later, that Vive isn't working anymore in one eye. So I do realize it's uncomfortable equipment, but some people just get way too immersed. So maybe we should work on more unrealistic situations, make it a little worse. So poor UX, poor experiences. Once again, mock it up, play it over again. Have your friends play it. Have your friends' friends play it. If you aren't showcasing it, there are 900 events in the city. If you haven't taken your little candle out from under a bushel by the end of the experience, you're not doing it right. And I can tell you, QA testers are phenomenal people, but they're also gamers. They're also been along for the entire ride with you guys. And so having your QA team go, yeah, that feels right, is not correct. It should be intuitive enough that you can put somebody into the experience and be able to play it pretty much immediately. The more you have to tell somebody, the worse the user experience is. And I can tell you, we've gone through 10 different iterations. I still don't think we got it right. As you guys go through, please tell me. I doubt, everybody's gonna have something to say, and that's important, that's great. That's sharing. Sharing is caring. Okay, so that's us. Any questions? Is everybody awake? Yes, sir.
For the people that would need these therapies, do you imagine them getting them through their therapist or doctor or professional
So what we envision, and the term virtual reality should be, it should be separated from what most people know of as VR. When you and most other people would talk about VR, it would involve HMD, right? Having a head-mounted display. The term virtual reality actually just goes back to a world that is virtual. So, any MMO is a virtual reality. I mean, you go all the way back to anything that has a visual, and you have the ability to go ahead and control it. So the way that we envision this is a platform that would be on a consumer level. Consumers would be able to take their Android, iOS device, Rift Vive. We're going on PSVR as well. Thank you, PlayStation, wherever you are. PC, of course, and Mac once ever they figure out what's going on. But they just launched. Everybody heard the MacCon stuff. We'll see what happens. Kind of. But we expect that it's going to be on every platform, and whether you have VR or not, because the adoption rate at this point in time, if you didn't know the number of people that are on Steam on a daily basis, the daily active users that use VR is 6,000. That's the number of people that ate at McDonald's over there today. So it's not a supported market at this point in time. It's not large enough. And when we want to democratize this, if you have a phone, if you have a way to get to a smart device, I can tell you, even at this point in time, you have the option, if you get government assistance with a cell phone, to get a smartphone. And so we're going to run on a device that will be that old. I come from social mobile. I got no scares in that. That's not a problem for me, especially because we built it for VR and same quality, just right across. But we expect, starting off, it's going to go to a consumer market, and then eventually we do want to do a therapist version that will be less innocuous, much more physical trauma, sexual trauma, that kind of world, something that self-care isn't exactly appropriate for, and then allow take-home care. So there will be two separate verticals that'll be working in tandem. Yes, sir.
And on the non-therapy or the not in the office version, is there like a mechanism for feedback or like talking to somebody, or is there like voiceover? Like, how are the typical elements of therapy in there as well, or is it entirely visual?
So there are a couple of different models of therapy. The one that you're looking at is and I may be wrong at the exact term, person to person. It's also known as CBD, which cognitive behavioral therapy, which involves speech back and forth. You can do an immersive style of therapy that doesn't involve speaking. And if we utilize, and what we are planning to do is have speech that's in there, because sound is very important. About 60% of your information in a three-dimensional environment comes from your auditory cues. So it's a very important thing for that. And so what we're expecting is that we're going to have a speech kind of interface, but very little of it's going to be, how about you talk back to me? And we can do that, with Google's API. Like there's so many different. How does that make you feel? But
Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you want to see?
Yeah, right, and we'll show that in the background. But it's all doable. I mean, we're part of the Intel Innovation team. We can get our hands on some really crazy AI stuff, but that's not something that I see as necessary at this point in time. Now, taking the analytics that come back, of course, I'm going to do that all day long. Analytics of how long somebody's been in this level, how long somebody plays the project, how long somebody is in this vertical, how long somebody is in that fear, how much, this person is, looking around. All of that information is very useful, and we can learn a whole bunch about all of those different stressors, and we can feed that all back into how we change the environment. But to have a voice sensitive back and forth, what if it screws up? That's where my world is. I do enough AI that I am at that point where, it's about 80-ish% right, and that's just not there enough for me right now in this methodology. Sure. Now, if you're talking about sales and there's like 900 other verticals, yeah, I get that. but this is a little bit, it's a little more safe world kind of thing. So let's be a little more careful. That's where I'm at.
So, yeah, because initially when I thought virtual reality therapy, I thought there would be like some sort of virtual room where you're talking to somebody, but all the virtual chat rooms I've seen are very laggy and annoying, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, there are actually a couple of different ones that you can go out there, and they run on these massive databases that will never be able to run on your phone. And, you know, if we wanted to really, really do it and get, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, a really good experience, man, your data bill is now 3 billion gigs for this week. You're like, oh, well, at least I'm better. Got to learn how to pay for that bill, though.
A telemedicine component
Yeah.
is definitely a potential in the long run.
It is.
Telemedicine is doing a lot right now.
It is a little bit dangerous, though. There is no, telemedicine.
Like getting pills over the phone, or
No,
or
telemedicine is
talk
like, it's what
Talking,
we're talking about,
yeah.
it's like talk therapy,
Yeah.
like they have apps for
Sure, sure.
sign on and like therapists are
Yeah.
available.
They're advertising that like crazy on
Yep.
Facebook.
Yeah,
It's-
or you could be diagnosed by someone, treated by someone for
Yeah.
like general.
That's more what I was
pain and
thinking.
stuff
Like it would be a person
So-
on the other end.
And there's a
also speaking.
possibility for that kind of
There is.
integration in the long run. That's not something we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Right now, we're
Yeah.
definitely aiming more towards self-directed care.
Cool.
So-
And there is a reason for that as well. Right now, insurance companies won't, and nobody's found, like, I've talked around to a bunch of different people, insurance companies aren't reimbursing for that. So if you notice, all of them are paying for our time.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, I'm here for an hour, and it's like, it doesn't matter what your insurance is, because they don't cover that, So some people could correct me if I'm wrong, because I love learning new information, but that's from what I've heard.
Med tech is tricky learning.
Oh, yeah. The technology always moves faster than the lawmakers and the insurance companies, let's be brutally honest. Yes, sir.
So the first visceral experience that most people have in VR, I think, are the edge of the cliff experience with the cat scare.
Yeah.
So this seems like a obvious entree to self-care. What other ideas do you all have for how to expand this
Of course.
to other experiences, other phobias, other issues that may need treatment?
Yeah, the next two that we're actually working on are claustrophobia and a firefight simulation. So claustrophobia, as we know claustrophobia, is tight rooms, tight spaces, although it is more often presented in more of an agoraphobia style. Open rooms with lots of people and tight areas where people are, all bunched up. So we're going to end up doing an experience like that. The occupational therapist that we do have on staff, he's an owner, I apologize. He spent 20 years in the Army, and one of the major things, because he was doing AR and VR technology for them, was that when guys came back, they're very amped if you go to like a supermarket or if you're going to, a show. And the reason why is, if you're in a firefight area, your entire world revolves around, is this person going to hurt me? Is this person not going to hurt me? They look like me, they're dressed like me, I'm good. When they're in an environment that's not like that, where everyone gets to dress the way that we want, who's friend, who's foe? And so, and of course, I'm not a therapist. This has all been told to me by him. So if I mumble words or I misword things, I apologize. So what the idea behind that is to go ahead and allow people slowly to ramp that up and be able to go back out again. And then, of course, a firefight simulation. I think we all get that one.
More long term, we're talking about aging diseases,
Yes.
autism, any kind of like behavioral stuff, sort of ebbing into these more like complicated issues where we'd be bringing on people that are experts in those fields to make sure that we're dealing with the most broad audience that we possibly can. We're focusing right now on PTSD, fears and phobias, primarily because our ownership team has experience in those areas.
As well, there's almost nobody that's doing it.
Yeah,
It's us and Skip.
There's not a
If anybody
lot
who
of
Skip Rizzo
people
is.
in the treatment space, for sure.
Good guy. Yeah. But so to go to those verticals and to continue answering your question with his, how do we deal with aging diseases? One of the biggest ways that they're working on right now to go ahead and keep somebody who has Alzheimer's dementia from continuing to slide is remembrance. You sit there and you remind them, here's what you did, here's your life. That's a really depressing thing for a normal person to do on a daily basis. So if we can remove that human element, they never get mad at you. They never have that issue. You're always able to refeed that mind, able to feed those experiences. That's a very powerful tool. And then the same thing with desensitization. If we're talking about anyone with autism, anybody on the autism spectrum can be with that same, because they have this fight or fight response of, I'm overwhelmed with sound. How do I deal with this? So same exact thing. We're going ahead and taking that response, we're bringing it back down, we're putting them into loud, overwhelming environments, and how do I deal with that on a regular basis, and how do I socially deal with that, because that's some things that a number of people, of course, on the autism spectrum end up having issues with is social response. What is the socially appropriate way I'm supposed to do this? And so how do we do that? So, yes, miss.
Earlier you mentioned also depression,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if you had any ideas on how to approach that with virtual reality.
Of course, health and wellness and meditation. So a lot of, and it all kind of goes in that same environment. A lot of people, unless you are on the clinical level of depression where it involves a chemical response where your brain ends up having an issue, a lot of it is more deeply rooted in other issues that you've had throughout your life, whether it's childhood trauma, sexual trauma, and you can continue down that realm. Once you go ahead and you alleviate those, then depression tends to not alleviate, but lighten. There's still always going to be, and we're not talking about here's my snake oil, here's the cure-all. I get it. I realize that it's not going to work for everybody. Not everybody's going to get healed. But what we're trying to do is help alleviate that. And then with the health and wellness, meditation is shown to increase gray matter. And allowing somebody a space that is safe, that they believe that they are in, that is not their current environment. You remember the Rat Park therapy, or the Rat Park? What was it? It was a whole trial, I guess is the easiest way of saying it. It involved drug use. They had a whole bunch of rats, and this is years and years ago, and the whole thing back in the 1960s was, rats will choose heroin 90% of the time, and they'll end up killing themselves. You remember those ads and that whole concept of adverts. There was a whole nother school of individuals that said, well, rats are really social individuals. These rats, they don't like to sit there in this really terrible environment. They're in a cage. If I were me, I'd probably sit there and suck on some heroin and make my life just a little bit better. Let's be brutally honest. And so, and I do realize, we're stepping into a territory that is hotly debated. But what the Rat Park test showed is they took these rats and then they stuck them in this happy environment. So they had these rats that were double the amount of time. It was about 90 days. And they go, okay, these guys are really jacked up on heroin. We're going to throw them in and see what they do. And so they're inside of this happy area with wheels and a bunch of other rats, and over time, most of them wean themselves off. They end up getting better. And then at that same time, they go, well, that's not enough. Let's go ahead and let's take some of them, let's get them really jacked up, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put them in with them, and then, we'll keep switching them around. And then over time, they just continued to start making themselves better and started healing themselves. So the hope is that by giving someone a place that they can heal themselves and they can feel better in, and that maybe it's not the same world that they currently live in, maybe they won't want the heroin. Maybe they'll feel better. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned there was a study that tells that it's 90% chance that this therapy
Yes, sir.
is more effective. Can you talk about the study?
Yeah, I could bring it up. This is my machine, but you can find it on Wikipedia. It's straight down, and they cover the entire thing. But basically, the whole thing was, at the beginning of it, they had X number of servicemen that went in. They had them go ahead and face their fear and phobia, which was firefight simulation. And then by the end of it, they went ahead and they redid their stressors. There was an X number of things, check marks. It was 14 that specifically said that they had PTSD. Anything below 9 was considered no longer an individual PTSD. And so they went from 14 to 9 or less. And that was done by Skip Rizzo in about 1992. That would have been the last generation of VR. And Skip, you will hear that name a lot, especially if you're around me. Skip's a really nice guy. He's not what you expect. Go up to him if you ever see him and you're like, oh, that's Skip. Just go up to him. Super cool, SoCal dude, like, really nice guy. Really nice guy. Smith.
I was wondering how big is your development team that's working on these projects, and also what languages do they primarily use for programming?
Sure. It's all Unity. And right now, the team is just 4 of us. There is myself. We have a UI UX designer, which is Alex. She also has a background in architecture and interior design, which you have no idea how useful that is in VR. Because I don't know about you. I've been making doors for a long time in games, and you're like, of course doors open like this. And she's like, yeah, no, doors don't do that. And then you just walk up to a door and you're like, all right, I'll go recode that door. I'll be back. So, it's a really common thing. Or I'll do like, emergency. And I did this for Intel. I had these emergency bars for somebody not to fall over, and she was like, yeah, no, someone's gonna trip on that, fall and kill themselves. So there's a lot of things that are like that, just the scale and size of things, making sure that there's appropriate lighting and appropriate emergency things. And then we also have our occupational therapist. He spent 20 years in the Army doing AR and VR technology, helping wounded warriors. He did a lot of it in San Antonio with these huge screens. And they're super cool because they have these 7-way treadmills. And he has a video of this guy, and he is an amputee on one side. And he's walking along, and he's teaching him how to walk with his new limb, and showing him how to do that, and pointing as he's going along. All right, we're going to stop, we're going to point. And then he took him to another, like a kitchen environment. I was like, well, go ahead and get some food, go make yourself some dinner. And they're all, it's all AR, VR, like, super high-end government tech. Like, this is the cool stuff. Stuff we all want. Not too far away, not too far away. And then, of course, our last one is Adrian Resendez, and he deals in immigration law. And where he comes to play is people who are minorities are more likely to have mental health issues, less likely to seek mental health. And a lot of it comes to environmental factors and socioeconomic statuses. And so we have him to help us break through boundaries and barriers, because most of the time they don't want to talk to me. Let's be honest. So that is our team on that. And since it's Unity, it's C#. Any other questions? I missed the hand. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, how long have your therapies and solutions been out in the market, and what phase are you in the research development phase, testing phase, or do you already have some established products out there?
Yeah, we're actually going to be spreading out the different platforms that we're on. Right now we're on Vive and PC, and I'm finishing up the Android version, and then I'll be switching over to iOS, and we're going to be pushing to all the stores coming up. So we are currently in a friends and family phase. We have a full vertical slice, but I need further traction to go ahead and get a higher level of investment. We're seeking $1.5,003,000, which ends up being about a year and a half of development for us, and we're expecting to go ahead and get 2 modules a month based off of current projections and current capabilities, and hiring up a team of about another 6 individuals. So,
And yeah, that kind of, my other question is like, financially, if only 6,000 people are
Exactly.
like, where are
Exactly.
people just investing on this on faith that VR is going to take off?
So, this can be a really dark comment on what's happening in the industry. Most of the funding kind of comes from hardware manufacturers that very much believe in it. HEC puts a ton of energy behind pushing and making sure that the technology, and HEC's, tell you the truth, if you get buddy-buddy with HEC, these are the people to get buddy-buddy with. for sure. Their belief is it doesn't matter what's happening, as long as you're pushing the technology, it's going to end up coming back to them. There are other companies that are out there that are going, hey, where's my nut? Why am I, helping you out? But a lot of the money is coming from hardware manufacturers at this point in time. A lot of the rest of it is coming from speculative future development. And it's not 6,000 users, that's 6,000 DAO. That's daily active users, or 1.5 million users that are on Steam at this point in time. Which means all throughout all of the different platforms, we'll end up looking somewhere in the neighborhood of, really sadly, about 10,000 daily active users, and somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2.5 million fully done units at the same time. But if you're talking about pure VR as people conceptualize it at this point in time, if you're expecting at the end of the day that you're going to make money, you're wrong. Flat out. There are very few projects that have made more than $1 million that are on Steam. And I can tell you, there are more than 100 different projects that made more than $1 million that were not VR on Steam last week, let alone this entire year and 4 months that we have now been in VR. So I'm not saying don't make VR projects. I'm saying make VR projects. Be the innovators. Push it. Push the technology. Push the world. Keep your day job. No. I can definitely say the people who are in it right now are going to be the people that are going to be in it later. If you can survive, and this is from Forbes, if you're a VR company and you can continue to cockroach until the very end of it, then you'll be good. That's from Forbes last week. So that's the reason why we are expanding as well, and we're talking about non-traditional VR platforms. But we are still continuing to support VR because that's where our hopes and dreams are, and we believe in it wholeheartedly. But on a monetization standpoint, it is just not quite there.
The main market segment is mobile.
Yes, 98%.
Absolutely.
98%.
The 1% market penetration for like your standard HMD is PSVR.
Yep.
And that's because you have to buy a $300 headset and plug it into the machine you already have in your house.
Yep.
Most people already have in their house. So that being said, that's going to be a very important, portion of the market segment. But development on PSVR is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to be a developer for that. So it's a process. But.
All right, gang, well, we're going to have to go ahead and wrap it up. So if you all would join me in thanking Tim
Sorry to end on that question.
It's all the light. It's so hot up here. It really is.
It's hot out here too.
Is it? Okay.
So really appreciate the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have the room for about half an hour longer. Tim has the software loaded up on the Vive over here, so if you'd like to see it, if you'd like to ask further questions, feel free to join him over there. Hang out for half an hour. After that, they cut off the air conditioning, and it's going to get really uncomfortable here. So make the most of the next 30. Eat the pizza. There's still beer. There's still drinks. Thank you all for coming. Yeah.